Our entire show is built out of show control and DAC.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
So
yeah.
our entire show is all of our content, everything other than like our CG stuff is built in DAC and then is triggered through Rosstalk in DAC.
Hello and welcome to the Daktronics Experience podcast. Today we're at Gillette Stadium with Abbey and Jen, and of course Matt's here with me.
Hi, thanks for joining us.
Hello.
How are we doing today?
Very good. We're coming
good.
off a big
Yeah.
win, and we're feeling great.
Yeah.
It's a pretty exciting experience to see the Patriots beat the Bills last night.
Yeah.
Yes.
But that's obviously what you guys are doing, is creating that experience with the displays that you have here. We'll start with Abbey. Can you start with just kind of your job description and kind of how you got to where you're at today with the Patriots?
Yeah, so I'm the director of event presentation and fan engagement. So the way that I describe what I do is that I'm in charge of everything but what happens on the football field. So every video board, ribbon board, the music, the cheerleaders, the mascot, the musket men, all of the halftime ceremonies and pregame stuff. So basically, like I said, everything except for what the football team on the field during the game. So
Okay. And we were talking before this then about you've been at several other teams prior. Kind of,
Yeah.
how did you get started maybe in the sports, I don't know, the sports business, I guess, in the first place?
So, excuse me, I graduated with a degree in history and English.
Okay.
And was like, uh-oh, now what? And so I started working for a staffing agency in Boston and was like, I really just don't know what I want to do. And I had always loved sports. I grew up playing sports. My dad was a huge sports fan. He was always taking us to games. And so I was like, oh, that seems like a fun thing to work in. But the only way that I could figure out how to actually get my foot in the door was to get an internship. And so since I had already graduated school, I was like, well, I guess I'll go back to school. So I went out to Denver to go to the University of Denver to get my master's in sport management. And the way they set up the program was when you finished every single required class, you were 1 credit short.
Oh, jeez.
I don't understand it. I will never to this day understand it. So everybody
Tricky.
either took an extra class or we got an internship or something like that. So my advisor set me up with an internship that they said was in communications. So when I went in, I was interviewing and I thought it was going to be, communications, PR, something along those lines. And we're just kind of chatting. And then the guy I was interviewing with is like, oh, I'm going to take you down to the control room. And I was like, the what? And so we walked down there and he's like, oh, and then we've got this and we've got this. And you've probably seen that before. And I was like, yep, 100%. Yeah, this is great. And the whole time I'm thinking, what does the control room control?
Yeah.
Like I didn't know about video boards. It never had occurred to me. And so I have no idea how I got the job, but I did. And so I started working for the Denver Broncos in their control room and doing all of their helping with just anything, basically. And that kind of got parlayed into part-time work with them. I then started doing some part-time stuff with the Colorado Rockies. And there was also, at the time, a soccer team that played at Invesco Field at the time, the Colorado Rapids. And so we did that. And then I did some lacrosse. So I kind of was in all of the sports teams out there. Again, getting as much experience in the game entertainment business as I could. I was designing stuff for their ribbon boards and kind of just whatever they needed.
Nice.
And then I wanted to move back home. I grew up on the East Coast, grew up in Maine, always wanted to get back to the East Coast. So I took a job with a minor league hockey team in Worcester and worked there for several years. And then ended up at the Boston Red Sox doing game entertainment and helping shoot and edit for their TV show. And then stuff for their in-game. And that's where I actually met Jen. And so we worked together for several years over there doing that. And we actually helped launch JetBlue Park and their control room and all their video boards. And then I got a phone call from my old boss at the Broncos saying, hey, the Patriots are looking for someone. And I threw my hat in the ring, and now I'm here, and I've been here this is my 11th Patriots season.
Awesome.
Nice.
So you mentioned, growing up liking sports and being a part of it, and then sounds like you got blindsided into getting into that industry then with communications. What about maybe now that it's almost the behind the scenes part of sports, right? What about that kind of enticed you to obviously stay with it through all these teams then?
I think the thing I liked the most was the influence over the fans. And even to this day, that's that's my favorite thing. It's that reaction that you get from the fans when you do something. And I remember there was this video that we used to play at the Broncos, and I don't even know, they might still do it, but we called it Renegade. And we would turn all the video boards black for like 10 seconds. And the first time we did it, I can't tell you how many video calls we were getting, like, oh, the video boards are off, the video boards are up. We're like, yeah, we know. And then we would play this video and the place would go bananas and they would just be stomping their feet and you could just hear it reverberate. And I remember just being like, this is so cool. Yeah. And we are doing this, like we're affecting that. And so to this day, that's my favorite part, is just being able to influence the fans' experience and what they're seeing, because especially and in minor league sports, it's a crapshoot for what you're going to get from a team, right? And whether they're going to be good or bad, and especially in minor leagues. And so you have to be able to entertain the fans. And if they walk out and they don't know what the score is, at least in the minors, I did my job. So I've always sort of thought about that and just like, they've had fun, and we want them to have fun no matter what is happening on the field.
No matter the record.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Created that entertainment experience.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then maybe we'll go over to you, Jen.
Sure.
Can you we got a little bit of a teaser there.
Right.
Sorry.
I stole your thunder. Yes.
So maybe we can start with then your position with the Patriots right now, and then how you got there.
Yes, so this is my third Patriots season.
Okay.
I really work hand in hand with Abby in executing all of the stuff that she talked about. I'm out while she's in the control room calling the show. I might be out on the field managing a ceremony, getting people on and off, and then back up to the control room to help sort of troubleshoot stuff that's coming up during a game and adding any last minute graphics or things like that we need. And then I also produce and call the show for the Revolution here.
Oh, okay.
So I'm here on soccer game days, and we have a nice playoff game coming up in a couple weeks here. And so, keeps us busy. And we do also produce and handle, just a number of events that come into this building. We run a show for our draft party and for our Patriots premiere gala. And so it's exciting that our sort of role extends beyond just a game day.
Yeah.
And you said Patriots and Revolution, so it's more officially Craft Sports Entertainment Group. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes. We both work under Craft Sports and Entertainment.
Yep.
And this makes sense too of your position now, because we were here yesterday up in the control room.
Yeah.
We would see you for a while, then you were gone for a while.
I was like, I'm going to sit right in front of you for like 10 minutes, and then I'm going to be gone, and then I'm going to come back. And,
So I believe you said then it was the Red Sox. We worked a little bit together. Was that your first entrance into sports?
It
or
was.
How'd you get there?
Nope, that was my entrance into sports. I kind of sparked an interest in production and things like that in high school, taking a TV production course, and just thought, oh, this is so cool, all this behind the camera stuff. I'm gonna give it a go. And I went to Emerson College and got my degree in TV and video production. So sort of was more on a shooting and editing side, and graduated in 2009 at the height of a recession, and there was no work to be found for anyone. So just struggled my way through for a few years and thought, maybe I'm going to give up on this thing and just do something totally different. And the Red Sox had posted just like an open call for day of game employees. And I went, and I had no idea that this department even existed. I didn't walk in there. I thought maybe I'll be a ticket taker. Like, I love sports. I'm a massive sports fan. Slept on the street in 2007 for Red Sox ALCS tickets.
Awesome.
It's
I'm learning
a huge,
so much about you.
a huge passion for me. And then there was a table there at the open call for Red Sox productions. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't know that this whole world that I've now been immersed in for so long even existed. They didn't teach us about that in college. It was go work on a film set, go work in a TV studio. So.
I don't think they teach it in any school, because I was shocked by it too. And I had gone to so many games. Sorry to interrupt you, but I had gone to so many games as a kid, and it you just don't think about how the stuff happens.
Right.
It just happens. And so I'm so lucky and blessed that I stumbled into it, and it's similarly to her. And I almost wish they would teach it. And
I know. We should start a course.
You heard it here first.
There you go.
Okay?
Enroll in our school.
Yeah.
So we've heard some things. It's even for colleges that we talk to too, right? When they start to get video boards, and even a little bit now into high schools are dabbling of the.
Yes.
Now high schools are getting video boards where they wouldn't have even 5-10 years ago.
Right.
And all of a sudden they're making these broadcast classes, and their whole pitch is, right, you don't have to be in athletics to be involved in athletics. So they're bringing people in And we've talked to a couple different students, and they all say even the same thing. Like, I had no idea this existed. Now I want to do this in college. Now I want to do this as a freelancer.
Right.
And everything.
Or they were interested in art or graphic design and realized that can kind of go together with the video board, and that's something that they have now.
To combine two passions, like what could be better than that? So,
Absolutely.
Well, and I do also think that having and we have gone now way off the rails. Sorry, Jen, but having experience, but having experience in designing specifically for video boards, I think is important. So it's one thing to have design experience and even animation experience, but I think one of the things, and this is, you guys did not pay me to say this, but one of the things I like about DAC is that when you guys design, you know how to design for video boards because you've
for
worked,
sports.
and for sports, right? Like we've worked with so many other companies that are tremendous designers, tremendous animators, and can make the best, videos and whatever. But when we say to them, okay, our board is, 11,088 pixels long by, 17 pixels high, they're like, I don't know how to build for that, right?
I
and
don't
so
have a format for that.
exactly, and so it is a very interesting and just completely different way of thinking. And so that's what I said, like, at least working with the Daktronics, you guys understand and know like how to design for a sports team and for a video board, which I don't think there is a lot, there is that
this season when we brought kind of Cino in and we were talking to Dak and we said, we need a dynamic way to show fantasy stats. They're like, great, we can take that and run with it. And like the first thing they showed us, we're like, perfect.
We were like,
that's
done.
Exactly what we wanted.
Because we always say there's like broadcast and then there's LED control. And I mean, they've gotten closer obviously throughout the years, right? Like a broadcast TV production truck looks similar to some control rooms right now in stadiums. But it's a lot of that. We have 16 by 9. And you mentioned even just, the gigantic video board here on both ends are big. But then even ribbon displays, you have so many different size displays. So it's hardly ever just the perfect.
Oh, it's never 16 by 9.
Building, never.
No, not anymore anyway. I think, gone are the days that stadiums have a true 16 by 9 video board. And so I said this the other day because we were just struggling with like, how to display some of the stuff coming out of our control room. And I was frustrated because it's 1920 by 1080, and then it's being blown up and put, and then we were seeing some degradation and things like that. And I was like, okay, we are not the only team that has a board like this. Like there has to be, another way, a better way to do this. And so it is just like working in a different world outside of broadcast, and the true just 16 by 9 has been fun but challenging. So anyway, back to Jen.
So you were sleeping on the sidewalk.
Let's go back to sleeping on the sidewalk.
The rats running by. So I went to the open call, I guess, for lack of a better word, and I didn't get a call back. I never heard back for months. I called them one day and said, I came and I applied. I know. I don't think you were there yet. It was 2010. Was this call? So they called and they were like, "Oh, we'll be back to you." And like 2 days later, I got a letter in the mail like, "Sorry, you have not been selected." I was like, they weren't even going to tell me. And then the next year, it got posted again, and I was not going to go back. And my parents were like, "No, just go, just go." I remember it was snowing out. My dad drove me in because I was like, "Well, it's snowing. This is a sign. I shouldn't go." And that year I got it. I sat down right for an interview then and there.
So this was 11?
11.
What year did you get there again?
I was there in what time?
You started in 11, but you started
a
a couple months before.
I started in January of 11.
Yeah, I was like March.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I know.
Sorry, my timeline is off. I was thinking 13, but that's when I left.
Right.
So I started in 11,
So I started just as a day of game employee there. I was doing replays. They were launching their new control room and video board this season. So we were both part of that, which is funny because it's really such a full circle moment to be here now in 2023 doing the exact same thing together. So funny.
It's just,
And so I really loved it. I loved the people. I loved the job. I loved the Red Sox. I loved being in sports. It was like a dream come true. And I just kept asking, can I come in on non-game days? Can I come in for events? Can I come in and work? And they were like, sure.
That's what you got to do.
Yeah.
So that day of game led to part-time, and part-time led to full-time, and just kind of kept climbing the ladder in that department. And so had a wonderful 10 years there, 2 World Series, a lot of incredible experiences, learned so much, and then made the switch over here in 2021. I have 2 little kids, and so 8 football games is a lot better than
I was just
8
gonna ask,
81
what was
baseball
Little did
games.
she know.
So, I know, right? Then they're like, oh, also do the reps.
Right.
Oh, also do
and also do Monster Jam and
Yeah.
Supercross and PLL
And all the other multiple
right. And when you
sports.
add it all up, it's
Yeah.
more than baseball,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
she's
So it's
angry.
But yeah, it's just been fun to come over to a new team and a new organization too, and learn just a new way of doing things and new challenges. And obviously this board that I'm looking at right now has been the biggest challenge of all of my career, I would say.
Mine
And
too.
so
Yeah.
it's been, but the home opener this season was like such a sense of pride and sense
Yeah.
of accomplishment that like, I cannot believe we did this like
Yeah.
that for the rest of
the
my
fact
career.
that it was
I will
on
look back on
for
that.
the home opener
Yeah.
was like,
Yeah.
you know, like
Yeah.
that there was even anything on it. I think was our like, we did it.
Yeah.
made it.
Yeah. So this
Yeah.
year has been just
really
climbing
has.
a mountain.
It really has.
But we've accomplished so much this year. And so it's been amazing to be part of it.
Yeah.
Go us.
Yeah.
Go us.
Maybe let's talk about
Yeah. Sorry.
Let's talk about the change leading up to it and everything that's changed
Yeah.
leading up to this year. I mean,
Yeah.
you've obviously been through some different technologies over the past years. Can you talk about that and how the stadium has changed in the past couple of years?
Oh my gosh. So when I first started, there was an SD control room downstairs in the bowels of the stadium that was used for the Revolution games. Even though we did have an HD board at the time, they were like, we'll just keep using the SD control room. I was like, okay. So, and it had a switcher and some weird old graphics thing that I don't think to this day I could tell you what it was or how we pushed content from
doesn't
it.
exist anymore.
And that was it. And then for Patriots games, we brought in a TV truck.
Oh yeah, yep. I heard about that.
And those were the only things we did, Patriots and Revolution games. And then after my first season, they decided to get rid of the control room. And so they ripped that out and they put everything into the TV production trucks, except again, we were still just doing Revolution and Patriots with the occasional, like a little event here and there. And since then, we have added, I would say, at least 10 other stadium ticketed events. We're hosting Army Navy. We did, and we'll obviously be hosting the World Cup here shortly in a few years. And we did the Winter Classic here a few years ago.
Okay.
So, I mean, we went from literally doing just, I would say like 20 maybe games all in, and half of them from an SD control room with 2 people in it to and now, I mean, we have a massive control room that alone has probably 40 people in it on a game day, plus our other control room that has all of our Daktronics LED systems in it. We've almost doubled the camera we've almost doubled to tripled our staff. The boards are 3 to 4 times the size that they were. And then what we're doing. I mean, I just I think back on like my game, and I was one person. That was it. That was our
I was gonna
department.
ask how many hats did you wear back then?
Yeah.
You
Every
just had
single
SD
one of
control.
them. And I look great in all of them. No, it was literally just me, and I did all the crewing and I did all the content and I did everything. Doug was with me in all of that too. He was here and he'd be like, oh my God, what, it's just you? I'm like, yeah, but I didn't have as much to do either. And so I just remember thinking back like gone are the days that I would like get my game script ready on a Friday and then walk in on Sunday and be like, okay, let's do it. Now we're like weeks
Right.
in advance
Right.
and planning and scripting. And I've got, an entire team now. I think there's like 5 or 6 of us total for game days. And then we have like 70 plus people from a freelance perspective on game days. So it's it's been crazy. It's been crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, stadiums are not just for games
they're
anymore.
not.
Like
They really aren't.
Across the country, it's really turned into like an incredible industry of the monster jams. We have PLL playoffs, Supercross. Like it's can't leave this stadium empty. We should be filling it as often as we can. And so that's what the organization is really aiming to do and has done such an incredible job at getting these companies to come in and entrust us to put on a great show for their fans.
Yep.
So I think that, Daktronics is a big part of that. And the show that we put on is a big part of getting other business to come here.
Yeah.
I mean, we are truly a 365 stadium,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah.
I cannot think of a single day where we haven't had something here.
I
So
was going to say, even the suites are getting used, and they're using the displays to show logos for that,
Yeah.
as we saw today. So
Yep.
there's always something going on.
Yeah, let's
Yes.
say we can get to the board too in a little
Yeah.
bit. But when, I mean, you actually have these control rooms now, right? When the recent renovations to get those going, did they come to you then and say, do you have like a wish list of things you want? Like, do you take stuff from the production
Yeah.
truck, or like how was that? Because it's always, I mean, we'll talk too about the boards and all the things that go into upgrading that, but the control system's the real like brains behind everything,
Yeah.
right? So how was that? Was it a start clean slate? Tell us what you want to keep, get rid of. How was that process?
it was pretty clean slate. I think. I mean, if you think about it, I think the challenge that we had run into was that our boards were, again, we were saying not true 16 by 9, and a production TV truck is 16 by 9. I mean, that's what it's for, right? I mean, they're producing for television, and so we were having a hard time. We have two different size boards. We were having a hard time pushing the same show to two very different size boards because we were seeing cropping in some areas and not cropping in other areas. And were really struggling with that. Yeah. And so, and then obviously, we were limited in, we would, in an ideal world, how many, EVS, replays operators would you have? I would have 4. Well, there's only 3 in this truck, and you can't expand outside those truck walls, right? Like it is what it is. And so I think really it was a clean slate. I think we sat down and we said, okay, what do we need to execute a game with 2 different boards in 2 different, aspect ratios, and how can we best do that? And we started at the bottom and said, here's what we do, and here's how we do it, and here's how many, and then we gave them that, and they said, okay, let's, we got to trim it a little bit, I mean, we were pie in the sky, right? Like we were just like,
You said perfect scenarios
Yes.
to start with, and then you just trim it down.
yeah, but we didn't have to trim it a ton.
No.
I would say I can't even honestly, at the end of the day, think about anything that we're missing right now. So we were really, I mean, there was a very big commitment and buy-in from our ownership group to say, we want this.
They were
this
all
game
in.
presentation
They were all
to
in
be
with
the
us.
best in the league.
Okay,
and they were all in on this,
Yeah.
and they've been tremendously supportive. And so it's been fun to be able to do that. But yeah, it was definitely clean slate. How do we do this?
Okay. He said we get to the technology in a little bit. So I'm kind of curious here, because you said you wanted to do two different size boards and get content correctly on each. So what came first, the control or the technology?
That's a great question. Chicken or the egg?
Well, the boards came first.
The boards came
The boards
first.
dictated
Yes.
everything first.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, the South board came in, and that was the one. And then when they decided to put this one in, and they, it really wasn't I don't think there was probably a thought of, it should match, right? Like there's too much space in that north end zone, and it didn't make sense to do anything other than just fill that whole north end zone in. So when it came up and we said, okay, now we've got these 2 different boards and these 2 different sizes, then it was what do we need to run it? And how do we get that technology to figure that out? And we're still figuring it out. I mean,
First season's always
we're learning something every game.
Oh my gosh.
Sure.
And I think we change the way we do it every game.
Yeah,
I think
right.
at the end
We're
of the year.
still tweaking. We're not, we've got, I can't wait to see where we are 2 seasons from now or 3 seasons from now. Like we're just learning so much so fast.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, because it was a multi-stage approach, right? I mean, like you mentioned already, getting the South video board.
Yep.
And then even the North one, because it was part of it was installed last year.
Yeah.
Yes.
Getting ready.
16 nuts.
Yes, it was
16
16
nuts.
nuts. I was like, this is fantastic. Can we just do this?
Straight through at that point. And then getting ready for that. So was the control room in multiple steps in as well? Or was it just, you're mainly getting ready for when this was done?
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
We
Nope,
should send you guys some pictures of like us standing in the empty room in July.
In July.
Like,
I mean, we were.
September 10th.
Yes.
Wondering
standing
how this
this.
is gonna happen.
Game 1.
Standing up this video board and that control room was, and the time that we did it in, I don't know how.
It was chaos.
It was chaos.
It was, I mean, we were all hands on deck, bringing in any staff that we could in those final 2-3 weeks. Like
to get it all up.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
But no, last year that video board the portion that we used came from the truck because we.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And from those control rooms that you have now, you're controlling all of the video displays in the entire stadium, or like even the concourses, even the club and suite areas, even there's like these 5 pylons out in the entry area.
The plaza.
Yes.
The plaza.
Yeah.
Couldn't think of the plaza.
The Enel
Sorry.
Plaza.
Yes.
Yeah.
Space Plaza.
Yep.
Yes.
So you're controlling all of that from those 1 or 2 control rooms.
Yeah, the 2 control rooms. Yeah. So
Yep.
we have our secondary control room that has visibility to the field, that has all of our Daktronics show control systems up there.
Okay.
And so, so all of those boards that you just described, minus the 2 main video boards, are all controlled through that. And then we do have, then our control room down on the admin level controls the 2 main video boards.
Okay.
So,
Then how do you break it? Because I know a lot of it's scheduled. I mean, a lot of stuff you mentioned probably, right? The concourse suite areas, the pylons. Are you just setting up a schedule for that? You set it, run it, and then from up there. And I this is the first time being in New England and going to a Patriots game was yesterday
nice.
too. So
Oh, you picked a good game.
yeah, I did. That was
Yeah,
crazy.
right.
So I guess you'll have to come back every game now because they
Yeah.
won.
Yeah,
So
my good luck, is that what
sorry.
you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I
Well,
basically
our
told
supervisor-
anybody that was at the game yesterday and anybody who did anything yesterday, I'm
Yeah.
like, you to do
Come
the
back
exact
again.
same thing
Yeah.
for the rest of the
There you
season.
go. All right, Will Ellerbrook, if you heard that, we have to come back. But going through, and I hadn't seen pictures of stuff, or I mean, from like even the first games this year and everything else, and of the stadium throughout the years. But I had no idea how many different displays,
Displays?
are. I mean,
Isn't
there's
it
so
wild?
many different
It's
ones. So
wild.
when it comes time
Yeah.
for game day, how are this is such? This could be its whole series of like, how do you do that?
Yes,
But
right.
You have some maybe just set to ads and rotations, but you can
Yes.
take over everything. But I mean, like, how do you organize all these displays? I mean, we always say like main, then there's ribbon, and like
yeah, no,
vomitory, and then there was the honor one, I believe.
Row of honor.
Row of
Yeah.
honor down there.
Yeah,
So, like, how
that's
do you
new
kind of-
this year.
Yep.
And there's a Bud Light Beer Hall ribbon is new this year. We
Yeah.
are like new ribbons and new LEDs.
Should we go
through
all
the-
the
Justin
time.
writes down stats.
We'll
and
do
everything,
we'll do the
but-
whole
Okay.
equipment list of
Yes.
new stuff. This
All right,
year, 'cause
let's
we
hear
wrote
it.
that down.
Let's
So
hear it.
The new main display obviously is 60 by 370 feet wide.
Yep.
And that's the new north end zone. There's a ribbon right below that. Then there's
Yep.
the Bud Light Celebration Hall. There's the Row of Honor.
Yep. So those are all new this year.
Yep.
It's something that's kind of new that people might not even notice right away, or maybe if it's a night game, but the Gillette Stadium lettering.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That
Yep.
lights up those letters. And the Enel Plaza displays, as well as GP Atrium and Ticketmaster Canopy. So quite a few different displays.
And he's just listing what's new,
New,
this
yes.
year.
That's
Like
the
that's
new
very,
2023.
yes,
A
new,
lot of
yes,
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So just
Yeah.
to clarify that, but that's just the new stuff. And
Yes.
you're coordinating all of that plus whatever was last year, whatever was the year before.
I think we counted this summer and we landed at 85 different zones that we could display content to in the stadium.
We've run out of ways to name them because there's like 5 of them in the north end zone,
Yeah.
so it can't just be the north
North
ribbon
end zone.
board anymore,
Right.
right?
Oh,
And then,
right.
it's wild how many like things we're trying to come up with, and like, what do we name this? And
Yeah.
and like
Right.
we used to name things after if it was just like one sponsor, for instance, like
DraftKings board. or
right,
something
and like
like
it's
that.
called the
Yeah.
DraftKings board. But like if DraftKings were to ever not have their content there,
What
we're
would you
like,
call
what
it?
would we call it? And so
the
we have to
name, yeah.
think that way too. It's like, what do we actually call it? I don't know what we would call that board.
North
Right.
one, South
Right,
one,
exactly. We're gonna have to
Yeah,
start
I know.
numbering and like lettering and
It gets very
fun.
confusing when dealing with outside clients.
Oh, yes.
And we send
Yeah.
them a spec sheet and they're like, okay, we want to use like QSTLO.
Right.
And we're like, okay, that's DraftKings. That one's this. We like it's just the namings
Yeah.
and the spaces are all over the place. We need a sheet that's more like you can only have access to
Yes.
these 5 boards. Don't send us anything for anything else.
yeah, that's
But-
one of the things with Army Navy that we're going through
Yeah.
right now is, they have access to the entire building, right? So we're going through how do
Yeah.
they program their
Right.
show and how
Yeah.
do they
What do they
utilize
put
all these
where?
boards? And, it's been, we've spent just days, just her and I sitting in
Oh my gosh,
an office
yeah.
being like, well, maybe they break it down like this, and maybe we tell them how to do this,
Yeah.
and it's then having to tell their sponsors how to build their content.
Yeah.
We barely know how to build our content right now for our board, so
Yeah.
like trying to tell someone else, it's
Yeah.
been
It's
been
tricky.
interesting.
I didn't
Yes.
think about that because you mentioned the different people that come in here for events. I didn't connect the
Yeah.
2 questions together, but it was all these displays. Now, what do you do when someone else comes in?
Yeah.
But do you have like a big whiteboard in there and you're drawing it all out?
Oh my
or-
gosh,
Well,
we've
it's
had
really
some
funny.
great whiteboard sessions
Love
this
a
year.
good
I had
Getting ready
to
for
I had
this.
to paint whiteboards whiteboard on my wall because
Yeah.
we were running out of space. So right now on my wall in my office is a big whiteboard, and I have drawn both of these video boards, and I had to write out all the
so much
aspect
math.
ratios.
Too much math this year.
And yeah, because we keep doing the math, and I'm like, I don't want to do the math again. So I wrote it all.
resolutions of
Yes, the
everything
resolutions, and like, oh, if you break the board into
Okay, this
three
zone
sections,
is a
you get
26.9,
right.
and this zone is a 49, and it's a
Yeah,
lot.
53.9 is the north board.
Yeah.
Sounds like what we used to call content creation guides, where we'd have to
Oh, yeah.
do multiple display
Yeah.
sizes and say, here are the pixels,
Yep.
and that's the size you create for
Yeah.
each one.
Yep.
But you have 80 some.
Yes.
Yes.
No, exactly.
Yes.
It's
So it's not it's daunting for something like Army Navy where they are getting everything, but for us on a game day, it's pretty standard and manageable because
'Cause
a lot of
sold,
it's
right? Like-
Yes.
permanent signage.
Gotcha.
So and those on a non-game days, they do run on a schedule. So we're not like coming in here every day, like looking at, we got to put this up, like pretty much every day it's rinse and repeat. The schedule runs. And then we just take them over on game days. But we're not creating content for 85 zones. Like it's, that I'm looking at the North Ribbon right now. There's 7 sponsors and they stay the same for every event
Okay,
all
so that
day.
kinda
And they
helps
stay
at
the
least
same for
check
every
that box
non-game
off.
event. Like
Yeah.
that's it. And we don't take that board over. It's not part of our immersive moments.
Okay.
A lot of those permanent signages are not. I think in a lot of other stadiums, you would find just like billboards stuck up in those places.
opposed
to digital
signage.
So
Yeah.
we have
Some old
sort of
Tri-Visions.
made the
Yeah.
choice and the investment
used to have those
to
in
make them
Denver.
LEDs,
Yep.
but they were installed with the purpose of just being an ad, really. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is the row of honor? I kind of get the idea, but is it a different like department each time? Because we saw it yesterday, right? And it stayed on. I can't remember what it was, but it was just stayed on.
it was
Air
Air
Force.
Force.
Air Force.
Yeah.
Air Force. So how does that work then? Is it kind of like every game is a
Yeah, it's
different branch?
whoever's
or-
sitting there in the row.
okay.
Yep. So
yeah.
that it's the ribbon, and then they're right on top of it are seats, and there's 8 seats, and so those are
and
8
then there's
active
a
service
POW
members every
MIA
game.
seat as well.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
That's awesome.
That's empty for
Yeah.
for every
Oh,
game.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but our community relations department works with, local branches and such, and they fill those seats, and then they just tell us, okay, we've got the Army there today, or we've got the Navy or Space Force, et cetera, and then we build out the
Names.
names,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
we put the names up of each person, and then
nice.
so
That's really cool.
yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking then even for that then, so we got in the control room a little bit already, but I know there's a lot of people that we've been talking to want to know more about Camino and how it was used. And you guys already name dropped it, so
Yeah.
you brought it up.
Oh,
so it's
great,
great.
yeah.
I don't know, can you start a little bit about when you said you first were asking for something like this and you saw it and you're like, yes, like what made you think that? And then the two-parter, then the how has it been going?
Well, I think for us, we really wanted to. We have this big board, right? And there's so much real estate on
so
it.
much.
Yeah.
It's just, and it's like, what do you do with it? And what But the other thing too is we were like, we can't just do what we normally do, right? Like just
Yeah.
because it's bigger doesn't always make it better. So we had to figure out how do we make it bigger and better.
Yep.
And so we wanted to make our stats and the way we presented a lot of our content more dynamic, and so we were talking to Dak and we were like, how do we make, I think we had even gone to Idea.
We saw it at
And we
the
saw it-
Idea conference.
Okay,
Yes.
yep. Nice.
And we saw
we
it
were very
demoed.
impressed by it.
And we just loved the dynamic look of it and just how they were able to present the stats. It wasn't just here's the stat, right? There's movement
And
and,
then it
there's
updates and that's it.
yeah, right. No, exactly. And you don't even see the update, right? Because it scrolls through everything, and then the next time it scrolls through, it's changed. But you
Yeah.
don't see that movement. You
Yep.
don't see the change. And so, when we had seen it at Idea, and this is even before we knew, what we were gonna have and what we were gonna be doing, we thought, gosh, look how great that looks. Like, wouldn't that be great? So, and then when we knew what we were going to be having here and the ability to do that, we just said, hey, we need to have Camino. We got to do this somehow.
We fought for it. We
did.
Were like,
Oh,
we
did you?
need it. Yeah.
Yes, we did. We said we can't display stats and information without doing it this way. And so, and we did. We fought really hard and we won, thankfully.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you just have like
We
demos
won
in or video
Camino.
clips? You got video clips to illustrate why you want to fight for it, right? Did you just kind of have?
Yes.
I'm going to throw Eric Eden's name out there, but did you have like
Yes.
more demos to whoever you needed to convince? Or?
I think we had a few, but honestly,
Yeah.
they
we did a demo and we
Yep.
recorded the meeting and
Oh,
we
gotcha. So
you did
we
something to
showed
point
that to
or-
different people
Yep.
of the different ways that they could demo it, and
Yeah.
that did it.
Yeah. So then we had a meeting to say, okay, this is what, this is what we can do this year, right? Like in my opinion, and Jen, I think would agree that this is going to be a process, right? So an iterative process where we'll say, okay, now we're going to add this next year and this next year. But we have been able to get a ton just for our first season.
Nice.
And it's the one thing that people comment on. We had somebody here yesterday from the Steelers observing, and he was like, oh my gosh, your stats are so awesome.
Yeah.
And I was like, I know.
Nice.
I'm so proud of
more.
them.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was going to ask if you
Yeah.
had any even internal or external feedback, and there you go.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
And you both have known of Daktronics, right? I would assume for a while. I mean, there's you've been different places, different experiences. What was your thought of, was when you saw Cino, was it, I don't want to say you didn't think that Dak had something that could do that, or did it kind of change your mind a little bit about what we've had in previous control systems at all?
Oh, absolutely. I definitely think that the Dak that I knew when I first started in this business and the Dak that I know now is, I mean, you guys didn't have a podcast when they were like, oh, you want to be on Dak's podcast? I was like, oh my Lord, you guys have a podcast now? So, I mean, it's just like where you guys are now and what you're able to do is, and it's a one-stop shop, which I love too. So, just being able to say like, I want to do this. Okay, Dak can do that. And, I want to do this. Okay, Dak can do that.
Yeah.
And so I think it's been pretty cool to see that evolution. But honestly, we didn't have any idea. So when we were at IDEA and they were doing that demo, I was like, oh my gosh. And the fact that we already have a Dak system and that it's just easy to add in and we're not trying to, third party and do all that has been tremendous.
Awesome.
So
And then how does that work then? So like, I know a little bit, there's the creation of it, right? Like you've even mentioned the two different control rooms and how they work on game day. And I think if I can remember how Doug kind of explained this to me earlier too, but so like one is, like the main boards, but that's where you create maybe some of the content too. And then it's set to go out on the other one. How is so is Cino in the other one? And how does that work?
So Cino is in our, I guess we call it our red level control room, which is the DAC LED system control room, which is right over there, and we can have a view of the field. And so we had some of the templates created, and we gave them to the Cino team. And I mean, I am not kidding you.
Yeah.
They sent it back and said, "What do you think of this?" And we said, "Done."
Yeah,
Like there was not
First try?
There were maybe a few
minor
color, like,
things.
hey, what if we
Yeah.
tried this color?
Yeah.
But there was no change to the animation. There was no change. Like it was like
really impressed us.
we were like
from the
whole,
jump.
and it was and with
We
all
showed
the
it to our sponsor team.
Yep.
They were blown away. Like they're thrilled with it to have their sponsor logos up there.
and we've been working
to
with
draw
so
people's
many-
eye to it more, right? Because we have this giant board.
Yeah.
Like, where do you direct people to look? So
Yep.
And
Camino
all
has
the
helped
vendors
so much with that.
we've been working with for this project too.
Yeah.
And how
The
many
DAC
like
team was
just
incredible.
Yeah. And then like if we would just go back, oh, can you fix this? Can you fix this? Or we don't like this. And so it was like such a breath of fresh
Yeah.
air just to be like, yep, it's
Yes,
wonderful.
go.
That's great.
Go start
Especially at the time
building.
crunch,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Right.
Exactly.
Yes. Yes.
Because it was one of those like, okay, now we got to work on the Cino end of thing. Like we're just working on this and now we got to do this. And to not even have had, we didn't even think about it, honestly. Like we approved the designs and then they came on site and they implemented
Shout out
it.
to Jeremiah.
Yeah. Oh gosh, Jeremiah. You're not supposed to look at the camera.
Well, I have to for Jeremiah.
Dramatic moments.
Okay.
Yes. Okay.
Shout
Sorry.
out to him.
Yes. So to have him here and do the training and obviously Eric and
Yes,
the
and Brian.
real Camino team as well. But the implementation of it was just so seamless.
Yeah, it was. We didn't even have to think about it. I remember it was like 1 or 2 days before the game.
Yeah,
And I said to Jen,
we haven't seen
oh my God, Cino.
I was like, it's all set.
What are we doing? Like I almost forgot about it. And we went up to the control room and they were like, oh yeah, no, it's done.
Yeah.
What?
It was so easy.
It was so easy. It was so easy.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Did that come kind of like after you decided how to like RTD out everything on the display, or this is where our video is going to be and this is where our sponsors and
Yes.
stats? So you kind of broke out the display
Yep.
and said, we've got all this
Yep.
real estate. Now let's bring these areas to life.
Yep, that's exactly what we did. Yeah, we kind of
Yep.
broke down. And again, like one of the I wouldn't say complaints, but one of the pieces of feedback that we were constantly getting from our fans was the lack of stats and information around the league and other things like that.
Out-of-town stuff.
Yes, out of town
Yeah.
scores and fantasy stats
Yes,
and then
yeah.
in-game stats and just fantasy now has just gone crazy
There's so
and
many stats.
there's so
Yeah.
many
Yeah.
stats. And so we really didn't have, other than the ribbon boards, and we had a ribbon board dedicated to out of town scores and stats, but it just isn't something that draws people's eyes. So
Yep.
they're not seeing it, right? So they would say, you don't show it. And I'm like, we do, but they just didn't see it. And
You can't
so
get as visual with it when it's on
no,
a
you
ribbon board.
can't. Exactly. And
Right.
so, and it's hard, you're reading as opposed to just like viewing something.
Yes.
And there's a lot of other stadiums that have, I would say, like pillar boards sometimes or ancillary boards that they use. And we just don't. We have 2 boards. And so when we were putting together the layout, I remember saying to Jen, and we were playing with the, the aspect ratios and all that, I said, we need to create almost in this layout pillars, towers, something that we can dedicate to stats. And so that's where that came in. And then when we finished the design, and that's when we were like, okay, now we need somebody to make it look great.
Yeah.
And we noticed a few of those. We saw the score updates or score alerts from around the league.
Yes.
And they scroll up
And those
show
are
everything.
automatic. Our operators don't trigger those. Like when a score happens in another game, whatever games we've selected, automatically goes
Wow.
up. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's
Less thing to worry about.
Exactly.
Again,
Yes.
things going
Yes.
on.
Yes. That's been another sort of stressor this year for us is the who's controlling the boards when, right? Like our DAC operators or our switcher, because we're using Rosstalk and GPI triggers for so much of our content through DAC. So just to have one less button that someone has to push is like incredible. We need more of that.
our entire show is built out of show control and DAC.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
So
yeah.
our entire show is all of our content, everything other than like our CG stuff is built in DAC and then is triggered through Rosstalk in DAC. So it drives our entire
show control
show.
monitors up there. Even
Oh, yeah.
here,
Yeah.
some
Yes.
back here.
Yes.
Yep.
Lots of buttons. We were even talking
many
with
buttons.
after
So
the
many.
game. Was it George or Brad?
Both, probably.
talking
Yeah,
both.
we're talking both, and they were showing it too, and they're like, "Yeah, don't worry the touchscreens off," because they said they'd have people coming in and be like,
yeah.
"What does this do?"
Yep.
They would actually do something.
Yes.
Well, and I remember when I first started, the touchscreen was so touchy that like, and I'm not joking. If we have the windows open, the wind would sometimes cause it. So Brad would be like, and I'm like, what's wrong? And he's like, it just. The breeze just triggered something, and I was like, "Oh my!" So I'm like, "We have got to turn that off." Like that can't happen.
You know, I was involved in so I've been with Daktronics for 17 years. And
Oh my
so
goodness! Okay.
It was early on when show control first got started. I was in charge of all the demos online and giving them out and using the touchscreen stuff too. So it's
Yeah.
they were a lot bigger than the monitors are now for the original touchscreens. Those
Yeah.
HP touch parts when it
God.
first started. I was like, "Look, I can do this."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I was going to ask them. So you've already mentioned Cino as far as the content made for it and what plays out there. It's the 2 side parts. Is that the only parts that Cino touches?
No, and the
or-
GIP bar.
And our GIP
All
bars.
across the bottom. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Yep.
So that was what we focused on for this year, and then obviously next year our goal is to move some of that to the south board and hopefully to some of our other ribbon boards if we can. Doug, get that updated, right?
Yeah.
He's listening.
Yeah.
Oh, he's listening.
So even with the size of the display, and you said you even were showing it directly to your sponsors sometimes and seeing that, did the size of the display or what you're able to do with it kind of help with sponsorships at all, or is it helpful to know that you've got all these extra dedicated spaces for your sponsors?
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, the amount of space that is dedicated to our sponsors is, I would say, almost double the size now.
Oh, yeah.
But also just the dynamicness, if that's a word, of it.
Dynamicness?
Right.
Yeah.
Dynamicness,
Sounds
We'll allow
right?
it.
Yes. Perfect.
And just so now before our board was set and it was like our north board was like an L bar, which was weirdly a different pixel pitch than the other part of the board. So even though the board itself was one square, there was like an L bar for sponsorship and other stuff that was a different pixel pitch. So we could never go true
over.
full board
Yeah.
because it was weird and it never lined up. So now we can move everything all over the board. So I don't know if you guys saw yesterday, but we go from sponsors on the outside to sponsors on the inside. And
Yes.
that's intended for when we are in field goals or extra points when the camera might be showing that part of the board.
Yeah.
And then we can go back out, so we
So
really.
that's huge for our sponsors to
Yeah.
know that they have that capability and that
Flexibility, capability.
yeah, we can move it around to make the exposure worthwhile for them at different times during the game. And these stat towers, that's what we're calling these zones where the Camino runs, has given us just so much more content to offer for sponsorship. So
Yeah.
the
it's
more
just
stats
space we
can
haven't
do.
had
Yeah.
until this year. So
I feel like it's we say the Daktronics curse.
Oh.
I find a way to bring this up every episode, but I think it's an industry curse is the whenever you go to an event, you look at things
Oh,
differently.
yeah, totally.
So
Yep.
even yesterday,
Yeah.
right, when we're here watching the game,
Yeah.
we're in the control room, even just watching the board throughout the game was keeping in mind of all the different looks you had, right?
my
There's
God.
obviously the full
Yep.
screen takeover for different
Yep.
things, and then there's also the one where there's just ads here, then there's
Yep.
the ads and this.
Yep.
And
Those
then you
ads
had the-
move all over the place.
Yeah, and you had the double screen, which
Yes, our
this
dual.
was
That was
a
cool.
story from Brad yesterday that was something you didn't think you were going to want, and then got
Yes.
implemented later.
Yep.
Do you want to touch on that a little
Oh,
bit?
Is it
yeah.
like 2 16x9 on each
Yes.
side?
So
Yes.
it ends up giving us the flexibility to do some 16:9 content, and also just to load content and do some things that without having to build out an entire animation and things like that. But yeah, we had fought so hard against moving the sponsors into the middle of the board because we just thought,
Like permanently.
Permanently,
Like
yeah.
that was
Oh,
discussed
okay.
at one point.
Oh,
Was
wow.
ads would always live in the middle.
And I was like, I don't think you would want to see two different things on either side of the board. And I'm like,
the whole time.
but
Yeah.
then we ended up playing around with
We
it.
did it during warm ups
Yeah,
at
that's
our
what he said, it was
preseason
warm-ups,
game,
yep.
And we were like, oh, wait a minute.
everyone loved it. We had like a league observer here who gave notes. She was like, it felt like watching a video game. Like it's so cool. It's so different. It's so you don't get that in another stadium.
And we were like, that was our plan the whole
yes,
time.
we knew it was
Yup.
going to be success.
You have the real estate to pull off some of that stuff. We said
Yes.
we mentioned we talked to some customers that have gotten bigger boards, and they mentioned being able to do side by sides now of two different camera shots.
Yeah.
But usually, that's the entire board. There. There's not room for that.
Right.
You had
Yeah.
you had two of those feeds, and you still had
Yeah.
other
A
things.
ton of
going
other
on around.
space.
Yeah, so
Yes.
it's kind of interesting to
Right.
see that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
the
is funny.
sponsors didn't have to come off the board to do
Yeah.
that.
Exactly,
Correct.
yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
Oh yeah, we got space for days.
Yeah, I know. We don't like people. That's another comment we get is like, oh, you should use the full board, but like we have a hard time using the full board. Like it's such a hard camera
is.
shot
Yeah.
It
on that
is.
full board.
You're gonna be cutting people
Yeah.
off.
Oh yeah. And
Yeah.
you know, and again, it's all part of the learning process because when we first ideated on what we were going to do when we were full board versus not, we were like, oh, the big moments have to be full board. So when we do our keeper of the light and
Yeah.
they ring the bell, we were like, that's got to be full board. And then we're now game 4
Yeah.
of doing it, and we have now not just gone from our
Full
into our
board.
second, but we've gone smaller in because
Okay.
we
We
were
need that camera
cropping,
shot.
and we
Yeah.
were missing too much of it, and it wasn't as impactful because you weren't seeing. So
Yeah.
the things you think are going to be like impactful and cool
Yeah.
ended up not being what we thought, and it's the same thing with the splitting of the board. We were like, that's not
Yeah.
going to work, and then
Yeah.
It
It was
did.
so hard to imagine this board until it was turned on.
Yes.
So first of all, these panels, you guys, Daktronics, put these panels up so early. We were looking at that black board for so long.
Just waiting.
yes,
Just
waiting.
waiting.
not
Just
just
waiting.
fair.
Yes,
Yes,
you got it up way too early. And we
Stare
just,
at it.
obviously we didn't have our control room. We didn't have
Any way
we
to
weren't able
drive
to put
it.
that board on
It's
until
mocking you.
It was.
and it was just so hard to visualize. How are these ads going to look? How is that going to look? It's going to be too big. It's going to be too small. It's going to be this. Like
I
it
think
was
it's the too small
impossible.
thing that's really been interesting.
Yeah.
Like when you're designing things on your computer screen,
Yeah.
right? You're like, that's teeny. They're not going to be able to
Oh,
read
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And then you put it up and you're like,
Oh my God,
way
it's
too
way too
big.
big. Yeah, our
We
lower
need to-
thirds,
Yeah,
like,
our
oh my
lower
God.
thirds were like
Yeah,
huge.
we're like, whoa, that
That's
was not
exactly
right.
What, Nick Schultz had said at the Broncos,
Yeah.
because he said they were looking at
Yeah.
renderings and mocking
Yes,
stuff up, and they
yes.
had game in progress thing, and then when they fired up, and they're like, oh, whoa,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's
You-
like 10 feet. I
Yep.
guess.
Yeah, you're looking at a 17-inch monitor or whatever,
Yep.
not like a 60-foot tall display.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, we had
Yeah.
people saying that about our game in progress too. They were when they were looking at the
Yeah.
renderings, they were like, "That's going to be too small."
barely read that, yeah.
And I was like,
Yeah.
"Trust me, 100 pixels on that board is going to
It's
be
big.
huge, and it
Yeah.
is the
It's fine.
perfectly
It's
right
great.
size."
That's even we've said. Like again, we've seen pictures of this already in use this year, but it's the same thing. I feel like every sports stadium and things you go to, especially with displays, you don't really know it until you're there, right? Like,
Nope.
it looked
Exactly.
big in all the pictures
Yep.
I've seen.
You don't know.
And you're like,
Yeah.
holy cow, that thing is
Yep.
really gigantic.
Yep.
Like,
That
Yeah.
happens to us
Yep.
a lot. It's like, oh, this looks like it's really big, and then
Yep.
you get here and you're standing underneath it, looking up at it.
Yes,
Like, oh my
yes.
gosh,
And
that's
the
massive.
and this is curved too, which is
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
it's a curved board, which
Yeah.
makes it I think feel bigger because it's like bringing the stadium in,
Yeah.
and kind of making it feel like an arena.
Yeah.
The whole feel of the stadium is different
Yeah.
now with this board.
Yeah.
It's just
It's
enclosed
awesome.
Yeah.
finally, right?
Yeah.
And everything.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
It's a
And it's-
combination of that and then us coming to the game really helped.
Exactly.
win the games,
We
right?
needed it.
Yeah.
Yes, win the
It
game.
helps
That's
win
what.
the
Yes,
game.
Yes.
exactly, exactly.
Yes.
But you were saying something. So, I don't people don't like to go to games with me anymore because I spend the entire time
criticizing.
commenting
Yes.
on,
Critiquing.
did you see that? Or did you see that? They're like, no, I'm watching the game. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, right. Yes,
That's
the game.
When I go to like it was like the Target Center to watch a Timberwolves game with friends because we're in Brookings, South Dakota, so drive over there and it's is that that's a 4mm
Yeah,
over there?
yeah.
I think is that 6mm? Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
You just shut up and watch the game.
Yeah, nope, you
It's like
can't.
looking at looks, wondering what pixel pitch it is. And it's
Exactly.
Like,
Like,
look at
I
how
like
they
how
did
they
that.
did that sponsor thing.
Oh my God,
And
I
like-
love when people are like, "Oh, you should see this crazy funny thing happened at a game," and they'll send like the clip. I think this Jeff got fooled by one. There was like some contest at a Dallas Stars game. He's like, "Look at they ripped off their jacket and they were really a like Blues fan or something." I'm like, Jeff. That is staged.
That is staged.
Yeah.
Yes.
That is an actor. Like that person works on their stuff. Like you can't. Like nothing fools me anymore.
No.
Yeah, I think I'll stop calling it the Daktronics Curse one of these points.
The
'cause
industry
more,
curse.
Yeah, the more podcasts
Yeah.
we do and talking to customers, it's just an industry.
It is.
And curse sounds
Yeah.
aggressive, but I think we all know
Yeah.
what it is.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
You can't enjoy a sporting event anymore because you're just
You know how it's
paying
made
attention to
and-
everything
yeah.
else.
Wow, look at the refresh rate. That is
Yes.
really smooth. And again, we were looking for like Camino type stuff yesterday.
Yeah.
Like, oh, there's the out of town stuff. Look at the animate. Nice.
Yeah. Watching those stats roll over, that was cool.
Yeah, right.
So with everything here that's been new, we listed a whole bunch that's new this year. What's kind of your favorite part that's new? Is it something that you can do on the control side, or is it just that you've got this huge piece of real estate now? Or
Boy.
So I guess I would answer two ways. The first, just for us, the ease of loading and getting prepared for a game is vastly different because we wouldn't have the truck come in until the day of, sometimes the day before. And so prepping content and things, you just didn't know how anything would look or be executed until really either the day before or the day of. And now if we're sitting at our desk and we're like, oh, we should maybe do this, we can literally walk down the hall, load it and go, oh, that doesn't work.
Try
Or,
it.
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
that does work. Or so I think for me,
Yep.
just like that peace of mind. And then I honestly, like from an in-game perspective, I would say it's the stats and the Camino stuff. And I'm not just saying that. I honestly,
Do not tell her to say that.
nope. And just, I get so excited when
Yeah.
I see that
No, we
stuff
have the,
come up. And
We had a video board reveal event, right? And our Jim Nolan was going to speak at it, and he asked us for speaking points
Yes.
about like what's new and what's to come. And Abby was like, "I just want to put Camino on it, but like I don't think anyone will understand. Like I don't think people on
Sounds cool,
watching the
but what-
news are going to be like Gillette Stadium has Camino coming. Like
Gobble
wow,
that up. People are like, yes.
that's why we have to talk to you and hear about it, to see what it does for you, and
Yeah.
hear the comments that you hear from other people.
Yeah, I didn't hear you say it on the Today Show. When you were out there.
sorry. I did. They just didn't put it in.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's a good
They're
cutting it
that's a
on the
good rebuttal.
floor. Yeah.
So there's a side question to that though. Like, how did that come
Today
about?
Show?
Yeah, like how
Yeah.
did they come over here?
Abby's the star.
Everyone at Daktronics geeked out about it, right? Because I mean,
course.
there was several. It was a great interview. There was several show
Oh,
control
yeah.
things showing the new board.
Yeah.
But how did that even happen?
Well, I'm very famous,
Yep.
and so no,
finally found
honestly,
you.
yeah, they
Yeah,
finally
there it
found
is.
me. I think they came to because they have what is it? Monday night or Thursday, one of the
Sunday night
football. So they do Sunday night football, and so they've been doing a piece. This girl that interviewed me has been doing a piece sort of for every game that
Okay.
airs on the Today Show, and then they came to us and said, "Well, you've got this brand new video board. Like, let's do something on that." And I don't know how I ended up being the person interviewed, but it was not me raising my hand. But they asked if I would do it. And I said sure. And so what I loved about it was that it did get to show something that not a lot of people really know or understand, sort of how I was before I was in this industry.
Yep.
There you go.
And then I like that I'm a woman running it, right? There's very few women in this industry. I'm proud that we are an all-female, we're a duo here, and I'm really proud of that. And so I was really happy to be able to show that off in that way. And I thought it came out pretty good.
Yeah,
And
it was
Yeah.
a great piece.
So you're definitely a celebrity
really
around
was.
Daktronics.
Yeah.
Link around that. And then everyone got
I'm
mad.
pretty sure your board is the celebrity. It wasn't me.
And then we
Yeah.
they were coming
It's
out
just
here.
a black screen unless if you turn it on. Right?
Exactly.
Right.
But you had,
Bring
you
it
had
to
show
life.
control on there. You had to say like, look, hit the button. They go, oh, it's that easy.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes.
it's like,
Yep,
yes,
it is that easy.
Did you like our operators in the background? Did
Yeah.
you like Brad in the background
Yep.
of
Yeah,
the
look
interview?
around.
Like,
again, you wouldn't know this. He had nothing to do. Literally, they weren't doing anything. They were pretending to be doing something. Like that was staged for them to be on
Hilarious.
TV. Yeah, he had his iPad. Jen and I were like, look at him holding his iPad. Like, what is he doing?
Yep.
It's got the script
So
up.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
No, that was awesome.
Oh yeah, that
I forgot
was.
to bring that up earlier, but they're like, "Oh, you're gonna go out there. You can see Abbey when you're out
Oh
there."
my gosh.
Like in Brookings thought so.
Hilarious.
Jen, what was your favorite part of all this stuff? I mean,
I'm sorry, Jen, you're over there.
Second time we've just
I
cut away
had
from
one
Jen.
or two shots in that Today Show piece. It's fine.
You're always finger gunning, and
Yes.
every
Oh my
time
God,
Jen
I
ends up
know.
on camera somehow, she's like doing
ridiculous,
something
like absurd by mistake.
Yeah.
But yes. Sorry, what was the
no,
question?
it was back to the original question that took us down that road.
Yes.
What's your favorite kind of part of this whole thing? Is it Camino again?
Yeah,
Or
right.
Is it
Yes.
something different? Yeah.
I'll pick a different answer, but Camino would be my favorite. No, gosh, I think just the fresh start that it gave us. We just took so seriously this off season that we need to reinvent ourselves. We need to reinvent the show. This is a new era of Gillette Stadium. It's a new era for the Patriots, and our fan base is changing, right? Our team is changing. Just the industry is changing. What drives people to come to a game? Like, why do people want to keep coming back to us?
And that's the biggest thing too, is why do they want to keep coming back? Because people say all the time, I'd rather sit at home and watch it on TV.
Yes.
So it's what can we do to make them want to come here?
Yeah.
Sorry,
So
I keep
think
interrupting.
that my favorite part is the combination of all of the newness. I mean, obviously the deck stuff and the board is great, but like we have a new lighthouse too that we
Yeah, that thing is
control, and
pretty
like
cool.
that's a cool game presentation piece
And
as
the
well.
bell ringing at the beginning.
Yeah.
Bell
That was
ringing
cool.
is like
Yeah.
a new
This is there,
tradition.
Yeah.
We have a new player tunnel that like we were part of designing, the redesign of our player tunnel entrance and the walk, and so just like so much this year is new and fresh, and it feels new and fresh here. We went from the ground up with all of our graphics. Like it's just been awesome
Real
to
clean
see
slate.
Yeah.
so many different pieces from so many different areas come together and create this show. It's a new
experience.
show.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's got to help with coming to work every day. Then, right,
yeah.
with that
Yeah.
feeling. Especially knowing that you don't have to wait for a production truck to come in to test.
Yes.
So
Right.
nice. It's so nice.
Yes.
Well, maybe like a wrap up type question then is what we usually like to ask everyone on the podcast too is any advice you would give to someone going through what you guys just went through for all this? So I know we can start with you, Abby, but it's
Oh, goodness.
I mean the major renovation or anything else, but what advice would you give? I guess.
Aspect
Therapy.
ratios. Yes, therapy.
Sorry.
She answered that really fast.
Really quick.
I would say aspect ratio, thinking about your aspect ratios and how that's going to affect what you're doing and how you're presenting content.
Okay.
And that's been our biggest challenge
Yeah.
is figuring out, because again, cameras are still 16 by 9, right?
Can't change
You
that.
can't change that. And so you're still in that world. And so just figuring out how to present everything in a way that doesn't look cut off or whatever. That's been our biggest struggle. So just thinking about all of that and how that, and not just going, oh, we have this massive board and you're just going to put up a camera and it'll be great, or
That's all you gotta do.
we're going to just put this graphic up. And so I definitely think that, and then I hate to use the word like dynamic, but just like think outside the box, think about how you can make it dynamic and don't just think I'm going to use it and I'm going to put something on the outer wings. Cause that's, what I've always seen, and figuring out how you can, change the layouts and do things on the fly. I've learned a lot of that from Jacksonville when we went down there, because our board is very similar in size to Jacksonville's. And so we had said, let's go down there and bring some of the layouts that we had kind of concocted and to even see, does this even look good? And they were giving us a demo of sort of some of their layouts. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, they move in and out and sort of all this stuff. And we thought we got to do that. So
That's nice of them to do that then. You just kind of
oh, they were tremendous. Yeah. And they put up, to think like we're an opposing team, right? And we're in the AFC, and they were like, come on down.
We'll show you.
We'll put your graphics up. We'll see what it looks like. And I tried to keep most of the stuff on there. Like I put, Jags
we used
logos and
different
things. So I
teams.
didn't but
Yeah.
still it was our sponsors that we were trying to figure out look good and stuff. And they were tremendous. They were great in helping. And so, again, maybe even just talking to other teams too, to see what they do.
Yeah.
What would you say?
A lot of that is the same. I think the content creation was our biggest struggle. And I would say we are still struggling with it a bit. So, I don't know what we could have done differently, but there's got to be
where it's going to happen.
Yes.
Yeah. I think the challenge we had was we had to start creating our content so far in advance, and we didn't get to test it because we didn't have a control room until right before the home opener. So we had to go into that control room with all of our content already made and untested. So I wish we had that had been flipped. And I don't know how many teams will be able to control that because you don't dictate those timelines, but I think some more testing would have been helpful for us.
We hear that quite often too. Is that first year is
yes,
you got the car and you pulled it out of the garage. You just try not to crash it, and you decide what you can do with it and adjust as you go through that first season.
I would hazard a guess that our show now is not going to be our show next year. It's going to be different.
Okay.
Just based on what
and
we've learned.
better.
Better.
No spoilers.
Part 2 of this
Gotta come to the stadium to
podcast.
find out.
Yes. Like and subscribe to see us next year.
There we go. Well, we do want to thank you for taking the time to sit down with us today and to have us here at the stadium and see all your handiwork and help the Patriots get a win last night.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you for your help in getting us that win.
You bet, anytime.
Yeah.